in one corner, and in the other corner we have David and Cass. All right. Of course, if you don't know, modern day debate doesn't care about any of your background, your religious beliefs, sexual orientation. None of that really matters. Race, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the ideas and the arguments. All right. So in a minute, we're going to get started, and of course, we agreed to having our vegans go first. They'll present with 20 minutes. They'll share that time. And then we have 10 minutes each for Cass and David. David will start that next round. And then we'll do 60 minutes of open discussion, and we'll get to your questions. So let's start right now. Let's get it going.
All right. Hey, guys. I'm Anna.
And I'm Brian. We are Those Annoying Vegans, and we are vegan activists. And veganism is, by definition, it's a lifestyle that seeks to exclude animal exploitation as far as what is possible and practicable. And something that we have realized is that many people confuse veganism for a variety of other things. People think that veganism is a diet, for example. We hear that a lot, a vegan diet. But no one has ever really been able to explain what a vegan diet is, because veganism is a belief. It's the belief that animal use for food or for clothing or for entertainment, for laboratory testing, or for any other purpose is wrong. And so when we're arguing for veganism, we are arguing for animal rights. And of course, ethics and morality, they are complex topics, but when we're discussing morality, we're generally talking about maximizing well-being, minimizing pain and suffering, striving for fairness, equality, freedom, choice, et cetera, et cetera. It's effectively the golden rule: do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Now, a significant trait to consider when we're dealing with morality is sentience. To be sentient, it means to have a subjective experience of life. Human beings are sentient. We experience love, pain, joy, sadness, curiosity, fear, anxiety, and sorrow. And each one of us perceives the world around us in our own unique way. We are sentient. Non-human animals, they're sentient too. The Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness was drafted in 2012 by a prominent international group of cognitive neuroscientists, and they concluded that human beings are not unique in possessing the neurological substrates that generate consciousness. So non-human animals, including all mammals and all birds, which are the animals that people eat, and many other creatures like octopuses, they also possess these neurological substrates.
You can continue. UPS,
Okay.
Sorry. Gosh, darn it, timing.
It's okay, you can just let them leave it this way. Oh, they're here to get the box.
Hold on 1 second.
Now, non-human animals, they have personalities, they have preferences, they communicate with us, and they communicate with each other. They too have a subjective experience of life. And since we value sentience in the human context, in order to be morally consistent, we must also value it in the non-human context. And so if it is morally wrong to needlessly take the life of a human animal, it is also morally wrong to needlessly take the life of a non-human animal. Unless a person, of course, asserts that discrimination based on species is morally okay. However, discriminating based on species is just as arbitrary as discriminating based on race, gender, sexual preference, or any other trivial reasons that we discriminate against one another.
Right. And to add to that, so what that is called essentially, what veganism seeks to combat is something called speciesism. This is the discrimination of certain animals purely based on species. There is no consistent metric by which we employ speciesism. As the oppressors, we simply pick and choose which animals we love and which animals we exploit and murder. In the United States, for example, we murder pigs by the millions. We rape cows to keep them constantly impregnated and producing breast milk. And we kill baby male chicks on their first day of life simply because they don't lay eggs. And so they're considered a waste product by the egg industry. Yet we treat dogs, cats, dolphins, bald eagles very differently. And, you know, different cultures pick and choose the different species to love and exploit. You know, in other countries, for example, dolphin is a delicacy. We consider that to be horrendous. for the most part. So people tend to look at non-human animals through their eyes and not the animals. That's the problem. But when dealing with issues of justice, we must always examine the situation through the eyes of the victim. Lastly, since there is not a single nutrient found in animal flesh or the stuff that comes out of their bodies that cannot be found in a non-animal source, it is not an unreasonable statement to say that animal products are unnecessary for human health, which means we choose to eat them. And so it also means we choose to enslave, exploit, mutilate, rape, murder animals needlessly for just temporary taste pleasure. So by purchasing animal products,
hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. I'll pause your time, so I'm not going to interrupt your time, but I'm getting some type of weird feedback.
Yeah, I'm hearing it too.
Yeah.
Is that us?
I'm not sure. Does somebody need to turn their mic off? Do you have your mic on, David? No? All right.
You guys,
I
Can you
don't
still
hear
hear
it
it?
right now. So yeah, let's start it back up again. I'm gonna start your time back up. Y'all still got a good 15 minutes and 30 seconds, more or less. So
yeah,
we won't need that.
no.
okay, all right, that's
Almost
cool.
done.
Cool. Well, whenever y'all ready, y'all good, and then we could pass it over. But I'm gonna resume the time right now. All right. So sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead.
No worries. I guess so. What this all comes down to is that by purchasing animal products, one is financially supporting and causing needless suffering and death just for mere minutes of sensory pleasure. And we as vegan activists, alongside so many others, want this to end. So, living a vegan lifestyle is about the least we can do. We are the only ones with the power to stop it, which means we have the responsibility to do so. And mostly every single person already agrees with veganism. So we're just trying to get people to align their actions with their values. And that is what I have to say. That's what we have to say.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to pass the mic over to the other side. We'll start with David. Let me just get your time right, because I'm gonna give you 10 minutes. All right. So let me all right. And you can and if I didn't mention before, all of our speakers have y'all all got YouTubes. Correct? You have YouTubes and Twitters. All your information is should be in the description below. All right. So if anybody out there wanna just continue on with the thought and just see what else these speakers are talking about, please be sure to check them out in the link below. All right, David, go ahead, do your thing, man. I'm gonna start the time right now.
Okay, good evening, one and all. It's good to be back here. Thank you to Kaz for joining me. Thank you, Brian and Anna, for coming to debate, and thank you to Modern Day Debate for hosting us for what I'm sure will be a fun, even if heated debate. So I'm going to jump right into it. From my side, I state and claim the consumption of food is like sex. It is a non-moral action. By this I mean, just like having sex or going to work, the eating of food does not make one a good or a bad person. The actions themselves just are. So what does need to be stressed is that within all these three frames, there are ways in which to conduct oneself, and it can show us the morals and the ethics of the person. To stress the point, there is something to be said about the manner in which the food has arrived at your plate, and therein lies the rub of it. Veganism, as I understand it, pertains to the ethical treatment of animals. That is, animals ought not be exploited, abused for entertainment, food, clothing, etc. Though I do get the inkling that the conversation will most likely revolve around food and food production. For me, the whole process of food production is non-moral. People need to eat, and that is about it. I cannot and should not be held accountable for the actions of another person, the person that beats the animal while it is alive, to be specific. I would be happy to stop buying my meat from a store that sources its meat from a place that engages in such acts. That is to say, the owner or managers have not fired the person who was abusing the animal. And before I end this part, I do need to state that I've done my best to avoid appealing to nature and going to the is or fallacy. For me, the consumption of food and the whole process involved is non-moral. It simply is. But let's talk briefly about non-animal farming and the working conditions. China is the largest producer of rice. I get the feeling it's a fair assumption that the working conditions are leaning towards the worst possible life. There are a variety of articles on the conditions in India for rice farmers. Rice might be fairly boring. So what about avocados? Production of avocados in Mexico have been linked to the Knights Templar cartel. What other major avocado producers are in South America? Are we going to delude ourselves into thinking that they have ethical working conditions? Even the whole fair trade label has gone awry with the supposed betrayal of its core principles. Fair Trade USA allowed big plantations to become FD certified, which was against its founding principles. The short of this is that there are humans, fellow sapiens, suffering and being led down the worst possible life as a result of farming. Though I would be disingenuous if I said that I cared more about those farmers and their workers more than the animals. I really do not spend much time worrying about the plight of the Guatemalan coffee farmer, nor about the cow that I will eat. If those are my views, then why am I here? What do I hope to gain out of this? I suppose that I'm hoping to find some common ground with my interlocutors, as much as I think that it is safe to say that we both want to maximize well-being and minimize suffering as much as possible. Though I'm unconvinced that they have a practical and sustainable way forward. But chiefly, let's say that in the coming elections, that is 2024, and Brian and Anna both run for the presidency. They put in a major effort and they are somehow elected into the office. My question would be, what policies would they implement and how would they wield their power? And with that, I yield my time.
Okay, I was muted. Sorry about that. All right, so we still had a lot left on the time, but I'm gonna reset it. And go ahead, Kaz. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. On your first word, I'll start the time up. All right.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Kaz of the Factitionalist Network. I believe in facts, and I want to form a coalition of people who share my belief and wish to fashion our society from its basis. If you hate bias, especially your own, then you are like me, and we can build together. So send me an email and let's network. Factitionalism is a simple philosophy, and there is more than enough room for vegans and carnists alike. I have three main contentions with veganism. They're in three categories. Practical, moral, and medical. Let me get to my first category, practical contentions. Carnism is a form of invasive species management. I would like to ask my interlocutors if, following up on the previous debate they had on modern day debates, did they ever receive the data from Smokey Saint about the ecological management of deer culling? I found an article, and I have shared it in my reference list, of wild cows running crazy in California. Apparently, that this is a real issue. Cows that are wild attack human beings out on public trails and whatnot. I've linked a research article showing that our livestock are not just food. Livestock recycle more than 43 billion kilograms of human inedible food and fiber processing byproducts, converting them into human edible food, pet food, industrial products, and 4 billion kilograms of fertilizer. Vegan agriculture is insufficient. Modeled plant-only agriculture produced 23% more food, but it met fewer of the U.S. population's requirements for essential nutrients. Vegan agriculture would create a food supply incapable of supporting the U.S. population's nutritional requirements. My second category, moral contentions. As with my previous debates, I remain unconvinced that veganism is a moral system that acknowledges and addresses our moral responsibility to the currently farmed species. I would like for my opponents to acknowledge that we are responsible to these species from a conservationist perspective. What is our moral responsibility to the animals which we have co-opted? I want to talk about moral consideration. Dogs and cats are capable of comprehending, be it by conditioning, a rudimentary morality, good dog, bad kitty, etc. We allow them to cohabitate with us, roaming free within our burrows. We extend to them a similar moral consideration to that of a human being because we trust them. You know that your dog will not eat your baby. You don't have the same faith for your pet snake, so you keep it caged. They can't comprehend any form of morality. We do the same with humans. Human animals that cannot learn the minimal morality we have enshrined into law are caged or terminated. And indeed, you would not allow a human animal with whom you've never spoken a single word to play alone with your toddler. Our category for moral consideration is not human. It is person. People are who we give moral consideration to, not murderers, not rapists, not monsters. Some humans treat other humans with the moral consideration of an animal, and for that they earn for themselves a punishment functionally identical to the consideration we give animals. Not to say that this is always right, but if there is speciesism taking place here, it's not on our side. It is on the side that arbitrarily draws the distinction between life forms and decides that some are edible and others are not. Life eats life, and the difference between plants and animals that you use to justify veganism is no different morally than the one that most carnists use to distinguish between animals and humans. I've also linked articles demonstrating the fact that agriculture causes animal death, period. The level of plant production required to provide a plant-based diet for the population will require us to continue to large-scale farm, will require us to continue the large-scale farming practices we currently employ, which requires the deaths of many animals who call crop fields their homes. Mice, gophers, groundhogs, pheasants, bunnies, possums, doves, rats, house mites, vole, and numerous species of amphibians, not to mention the insects. If we measure harm in terms of the total number of lives taken, then vegan farming may prove to surpass even husbandry in terms of suffering and cruelty. More needless than the killing of cattle and pigs, for at least we use those corpses, their deaths are not in vain. But a rabbit whose head is removed by a plow is of no utility to us. The third category, medical contentions. We evolved to eat meat. As part of our diet, our bodies require certain nutrients that are not found in abundance in plant resources. Choline, the highest content of that is in shiitake mushrooms. You need 9 servings of that to equal what you would get from 2 servings of beef or 3 eggs. There are at least 7 other nutrients: taurine, heme iron, DHA, which is very important for infant brain development, vitamin D3, carnosine, vitamin B12, and creatine. Supplementation requires artificial and or highly processed nutrients. Whether a cause for concern or not, people have the right to choose not to consume artificial or processed nutrition. If it is a fact that all ingredients and products from, it is a fact that ingredients and products from all industries have proven deadly, even when scientifically attested to by prominent scholars. And I also have research which shows that meat eaters tend to have better psychological health than vegetarians. How much time do I have left? Can't hear you. Sorry.
You got about 4 minutes and 50 seconds.
Okay. So I just have some more questions here. That's not, I timed myself for 5 minutes, but I do have some more questions I want to ask you guys. I'm just going to get them out here while I have the floor. If your morality is based on well-being versus suffering, do you agree that some suffering proves to be beneficial to both individuals and societies? For instance, if hypothetically we could grow ears or other prosthetic body parts on the backs of mice, or using pigs for parts and goats to practice, and then using all that knowledge and experience to save the lives of innocent human children, do you really condemn that suffering those animals endure as a net immorality? And with that, I yield the floor.
All right, with time to spare. Awesome. All right, so we're going to go into our open discussion. It looked like we may have lost David. Hopefully he make his way back to us. He came all this way from Israel, so we need him. We need him back. All right. So hit
a few seconds, or
yeah. Well, we can get started in open debate. When he comes in, we'll just summarize what we said in the meantime.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. We can start touching on some of the points that you brought up, Kaz.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be great.
By all means.
But I was taking notes. Okay. Let's see what we want to cover first.
Oh,
what did I write here?
Did we cows?
I skipped a word. We can talk about agriculture.
Sure.
Which is one of the first points you brought up, and crop deaths.
Yeah.
I mean, let's start there.
I have found some sources that were saying that any agriculture that you practice, even plant-based, is going to result in deaths of animals, because fields are natural homes for millions of animals. So as opposed to feeding, and I think this was a subject that was in one of your other debates too, which is why I looked into it further. Yeah, mice, gophers, groundhogs, pheasants, bunnies, etc., those lives matter too.
Sure.
And if you want the entire world to go vegan, then I mean, I'm assuming that's your goal. If that is what you want, and we all do that, then we have to grow way more crops. Even if it's less land used than we would use for animals, it's still more land than we have now. which means more animals being killed. And we have to use the big industrial plows, et cetera, et cetera. They have to crush the land. They have to pulverize the dirt and chop off the heads of the bunnies, et cetera. How do we stop doing that? How do we go to a totally vegan farming? Is there any plan for that?
Firstly, I mean, of course, sure, it'd be ideal for the entire world to go vegan. We're not sure that that's going to happen, just like it'd be ideal if the entire world were not racist, but you know, that's an ideal goal. But what we're seeking to do is progressively eliminate as much animal suffering as possible. And yes, absolutely, animals die in crop harvesting. We have to also take into account the food that is grown to feed all the farm animals. Cows, you know, soy, grasses, pigs, corn, yeah. So there will be crop deaths also when it comes to animal feed. And then the other point was?
Well, I would just argue that we're already growing enough food to feed 70 billion land animals annually, and there's only 7.5 billion people on the planet. So
is that minus all of the animal agriculture that we're doing right now, that figure?
What's that?
That whatever source that comes from, that we are growing enough food to feed everyone right now, does that not count any animal agriculture whatsoever in its figures?
Does that? No, I'm saying we grow enough plants to feed the herbivores that we eat. Okay. And we know that because all the herbivores that we eat are eating plants.
There he is.
And so we are already growing enough plant food, like we're already using enough land, we're already growing enough calories to feed 70 billion land animals, and there's only 7.5 billion human beings on the planet.
Yeah, so if you think about it, I mean, the land that is used to feed a single cow, I mean, a single cow consumes about 25 to 27 pounds of grain, depending, you know, if they're male, female, pregnant or not pregnant, but that's a day. And you have 10 billion cows who are slaughtered in the US alone. That's my feedback. Yeah.
All right, now would be a good time. Welcome back, David. We lost you for a little bit. Just to summarize, because I know you walked in while the guys were speaking. Basically, they was just responding to one of Cass's points in reference to large-scale agriculture. If we try to make the whole world vegan, then the potential to have deaths of those animals that live in those fields, like you mentioned several species, like rabbits and gophers and so on and so forth. And the guys on the other side, the vegan side, was just responding like, hey, we're already growing this agriculture just to feed the livestock that we wind up consuming anyway. So that's basically what you missed. And so let's just jump back into it. Go ahead, Anna. Anna, you was in the middle of a point. So go ahead and please finish your thought.
Yeah, that was pretty much, I think, our last point, is that we're already growing enough crops to feed the 76 billion land animals that are killed every single year worldwide. And there are only 7 billion people on the planet. So if you think about the pounds and pounds and the tons of food that go to feed cows, pigs, and chickens, and sheep and goats and what have you, we could be giving that to people.
Or we could be using the same land.
Yeah, obviously we don't need grass or grains. I mean, not grains. We do eat grains. But
David, do you want to jump on this for a second, or can I go ahead?
Go ahead. I have something to say, but go ahead.
Okay. I just want to push back on that a little bit because from my research, what I've found is that we feed cows and livestock scraps and leftovers, recycled food byproducts and whatnot. We're not necessarily, or we don't at least have to grow crops just for them. So I'm wondering if there's like, I don't know, just to me, it's not the case that we are growing all these crops just to feed animals.
Well, yeah,
we are, because I think you might be talking about maybe small scale farming or backyard farmers, but if if you take a drive up the I-5 here in California, you have factory farm after factory farm after factory farm of dairy cows, and they have these giant troughs that are just full of grain or grasses. So in industrial farming, it would not be economically viable to grow vegetables or a cow would have to eat a ton of scraps to survive. And frankly, their ideal diet is a diet of grasses. So
which we can't eat anyways, right?
we can't.
No, we don't eat grass. But look, if you just look at the amount of soy that's grown, I mean, the percentage of soy that actually goes to human beings who eat soy, I think it's 2%, 5%. It's ridiculously small. Most of the soy grown is grown for animal feed or for like industrial oils.
I mean, I'm against factory farming like anybody else and the atrocities that go on there. And I think I've made that clear in my other debates.
But do you consume factory
farming? If we are going to move our society in mass towards veganism, as you guys are proponents of, then how do we stop using factory farming techniques? Don't we need those to be able to feed all these new vegans?
Well, the point is we don't need to consume animal products to feed people. So we would
right, but those techniques are still needed in plant agriculture, which means we still have to kill animals.
All right,
you're talking about crop death.
You're saying crop, yeah.
Here, let's give David a chance to.
I think what we're trying to say is, what I was gonna join in with Kaz saying is that when it comes to non-animal farming, we're already killing many animals coincidentally, or perhaps not intentionally. As I mentioned, there were gophers, there were mice, there are rabbits being killed. When it comes to farming anywhere, when it comes to wheat farming, whatever you want to talk about, animals already being killed. So we're still going to be killing more and more animals.
Yes, but just because some animals,
no matter which way you look at it,
what's that? Oh, I'm saying just because some animals inevitably die, it doesn't mean we need to purposefully kill other animals just because some animals may die in the process of growing crops.
Yeah,
well, I think the question then comes down to how many animals is an acceptable number to you? Because when it comes to those, I think it is 15 animals per hectare of non-animal farming are killed versus 7.5 animals per hectare of animal-based farming.
I would want to know where that. Go ahead.
You had a debate. I think it was sometime last year where one of the omnivores brought up a study by Davies, which he mentioned that. You remember that? It was you, Brian, that had that debate.
Oh, at Cal State Long Beach?
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe so.
I mean, the data is pretty clear. There's a study, I think it's literally called Animal Deaths per Million Calories in 8 food categories. And by far, the most deaths occur in the animal food industries because you can grow far more calories on the same amount of land with plants than you can with animals. So chicken, by far, they are the most murdered on the planet. And then followed by pigs and cows, and at the bottom, it's fruits and vegetables.
So I think we might be referring to the same study, but they were saying that if you had to then eliminate all those chickens that were being killed, I think the number was somewhere in the range of 8 billion chickens are being killed. And you had to make up those calories or the meat with just cows, you'd be able to get enough meat with, I think it was 74 million cows being killed. So still net gain would be, pardon? The net gain you would save over, I think it was 250 million animals would be saved per year.
Yeah. So do you only eat cows? Do you not eat chickens or pigs or fish?
I mostly eat beef.
You mostly. Eat, but you still eat chicken and pigs and fish.
Okay. As I said in my opening,
chickens have the lowest water footprint.
Not entirely.
But I'm saying you're making an argument that you're not living up to in your practical everyday life, because you could eat neither chickens nor cows and then cause even fewer deaths.
I've never said that was my ideal. We're talking about your ideals. We're talking about veganism and trying to not kill as many animals as possible. So where do you draw that line?
At not eating
At
animals.
not eating animals because they're sentient and they're worthy of moral consideration. And if you can cause
we get that, we understand that,
eating plants,
but by going through your route, we'd be killing 15 animals per hectare, whereas in our standard we're going at 7.5 animals per hectare. Your methodology would end up.
The question is a mice's life equal to a cow's life to you? Is it a 1-to-1 ratio of value?
Are we killing both of them intentionally and needlessly?
Yes.
Well, no, because when mice die in the fields, that's not an intentional death.
We're knowing about it, and if you know that you're causing a harm and you continue to do the action, then you are doing it intentionally, aren't you?
You're intentionally farming a crop, but you're not intentionally killing an animal to eat their corpse.
I mean, you know that when you eat a cow, you know you're eating a cow. Yeah. The cow died. You don't necessarily know that by eating.
Well, I do now. I read the paper. Now I know. Now I know that every time I eat a freaking jalapeno, I killed for it.
Every time the cow eats the soy that was harvested for that cow, now say we're using your statistics, then you've not only contributed to the cow's death, but also to the animals that died for the crops that the cow ate. So that's double the suffering.
We're doing the least that we can do, the least harm that we can do, as far as what's practical and possible. That's what it seeks to do.
Go ahead, David.
I'd like to clarify the 7.5 animals per hectare. That is combined animal and plant-based farming, so that would include the farming done to feed the animals, to feed the cows, to feed the chickens and the pigs.
So it's
I think we disagree on the data. I think that's what it is. We disagree on the data, because if you look at the amount of calories produced per square mile or per hectare, you can produce more calories of food with plants than you can with animals, because that's what human beings need. We need calories.
Okay, but we're talking about, are we talking about food production or morality? Because I thought that veganism wasn't about diet.
It's not. It is about morality.
So let's talk about lives taken versus calories.
We're answering your question, because normally if you want to switch to morality, you talk about morality.
Just one small thing when we get back into morality, we need the correct kind of calories. We don't just need calories. We could get all the calories we need from a bag of Doritos chips. But the thing is, we need quality calories, not empty calories.
We do.
So, so go for it.
That's why we said before, like, there's no such thing as a vegan diet, because a vegan diet could be it could be Oreos and soda. But if you're talking about a whole foods, plant-based diet, then that's different. And yes, we totally agree. You do need quality calories. Processed foods. I mean, and you mentioned this too. I wanted to bring this up, Kaz, because you brought up, you were talking about processed foods, but we can't forget that animal flesh is also heavily processed.
Right.
And anything from the washing that has to happen. To the
you have to wash your vegetables, right? I mean, I wash mine.
Well, but you chickens are soaked in chlorine. It's just,
I mean,
a little more
again, I will not defend farming practices at all whatsoever. I'm defending carnism, the physical act of putting meat in your mouth. That is all I defend. As far as anything beyond that, I'm against it.
And
I would be okay if we closed all the factory farms. I would be okay if we outlawed husbandry entirely and everyone had to hunt and only hunt.
Okay, so that's a segue into morality, because then you're saying that you support animal welfare, which is most people actually, surveys have shown that most people are against animal cruelty. Most people are for animal welfare. What the thing is, why does animal welfare why does there have to be a line drawn at, okay, let's treat this animal with kindness up until the day we slit its throat, because then it's in our best interests. You know what I mean? So there's an inconsistency there in the animal's inherent right to live and our personal desire to eat its flesh, even though we don't need to.
Well, I think it's a utilitarian aspect. It's the fact that those animals give us so much more than just their meat. I mean, we're talking about pig hearts and valves. We're talking about skin grafts. We're talking about, I have all these different studies and medical data. There's just so many uses for animals in medicine, and there's animal testing. I mean, you guys are against animal testing, right?
What's that?
You guys are against animal testing, right?
Yes.
Yes.
How do you propose that we test new drugs that are potentially lethal, that are for infants, per se?
Well, potentially lethal. I don't know. That's kind of extreme, but I mean, there have always been
chemotherapy.
There have always been human volunteers for. I volunteered for eye drops that hadn't been released in the market, but there are always new ways evolving to test drugs and to test devices and whatnot that don't involve animals. I mean, even just rudimentarily speaking, in high school, now you don't have to dissect a frog to learn about biology. You can use a computer program. That didn't exist, 10 years ago when I was in high school. I had to dissect a squid. I had to dissect an earthworm, a frog. But this is constantly evolving. We're finding new and more effective ways to evolve our medicine.
David, you want to jump in real quick? I don't want to.
So I do. So I do think we have made great leaps and bounds in how we treat animals. That being said, when it comes to medical treatment and experiments, it's literally called human guinea pigging, where humans will, as you said, they will volunteer themselves to go for these tests. I know quite a few students have gone for these experiments to earn a bit of extra cash. However, you do get people who will be forced into this because they have no other financial options. You might say that they're choosing to do this, but they're doing it out of a financial necessity. They're doing this under duress, and this may have many unwanted repercussions on the rest of their life.
Well, I mean,
when they get to that stage, but usually by the time they get to the stage, the products are safe for human testing, knowing that the people who are volunteering themselves and their livelihood and their personhood, they're probably not going to die or lose an eye.
Right.
You're taking away the safety cushion that every human guinea pig gets because these animals have been, these drugs have been inside an animal before. They have some idea of what it can do to you, even if they don't have a complete picture. But you're trying to say that we can't have any idea what it happens to a body before we put it into a human being. And then we're going to exploit the poor, the disproportionately economically disenfranchised. I just don't think that could be ever ethical.
I volunteered for a study. I don't consider myself.
Well, the data shows that it's disproportionately economically disadvantaged people.
But, it's funny that.
We're not talking about these. We're talking about people who are in a much worse. We're talking about people who would be in a much worse financial strait, not you specifically.
Well, you could say the same thing. You could use the same exact argument for slaughterhouse workers. Slaughterhouse workers, you could say, are forced into a lifestyle that, they suffer from PTSD, depression, higher rates of suicide, alcoholism, drug use. You could say that they're forced into a lifestyle that, most slaughterhouse workers are people of color, people of low socioeconomic backgrounds, veterans, ex-prisoners. Basically, they have very little political clout. You could use that same argument. And it's the only reason they take those jobs is because we are demanding the animal products.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact that you could gather a whole bunch of super useful medical information and medical testing information if we used humans and harvested human heart valves and human organs and did human testing. But we don't do that.
Because humans have the right to say no.
Well, right. It's immoral.
Yeah,
so help me bridge the gap there then. We're going to take away the animal testing. We're going to say humans need to consent to this stuff.
They don't need to.
How do we?
There will always be volunteers, just like with the COVID-19 vaccines. How many people have volunteered to get something injected into them that they'd have no idea?
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
It was an
We're
article.
talking about financial duress. What we're arguing about is people doing this under financial duress. And when it comes to people being harvested, I think we all know about what happens in China when it comes to organ harvesting.
Yes.
We know that people are, if you open up a market for people, human trafficking, what you're arguing for will lead to more human trafficking.
You're using fringe examples to justify people eating at McDonald's. I mean, when we're talking,
No, we're not. We're not justifying McDonald's. We're just justifying eating meat. We don't care about McDonald's.
Do you eat McDonald's?
I do, yeah. I'm not justifying it though.
Then what is this?
It's immoral to eat McDonald's. I'll concede to you that I am immoral when I eat at McDonald's. I will concede to you that.
Okay.
So then what is this argument? You're arguing for a moral system that you yourself don't follow.
Nobody follows it. You don't follow it. Nobody is perfectly vegan.
We don't
We
eat
do.
Like you
McDonald's.
said, the animals that are killed in the fields where your vegetables are harvested, you don't care about them. You don't even give them a second thought. It's not even part of your calculus.
It's just that's the fewest deaths possible. So that
but we've shown that it's not the fewest deaths.
It's not about
double. It's double the number of deaths per life.
It's double the number of deaths if you eat the cow that ate the crops that the animals died in, plus the cow. I mean,
no, that's what he showed.
Is not about.
We have to have another separate subject about the data. We have to go into the data and just that one article and just debate that one article.
What I'm saying is you yourself are advocating for a moral system that you don't follow. Yes?
Yeah. I don't slaughter animals. I'm not involved in that. That's not my job.
But you pay for a Big Mac.
So. And someone, and actually I think it was who said might have been David who said that we should not be held accountable for another's actions. Did you mean what Kaz? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Kaz. Yeah.
Kaz. What Kaz is saying that you don't kill the animal yourself, so you shouldn't be held morally responsible, but you are paying for that to happen.
That's not what I said.
No.
I said there's nothing wrong with eating meat at all. No, what I'm saying is that when animals are being beaten in the factory farm, when animals are being abused, how can I be held accountable for that action?
Here's the thing: animal abuse is very common in farms because the workers. If you think about slaughterhouse workers, unless they're they have mental issues, which most of them unfortunately end up developing. No one really gets up in the morning and like, yes, let's go kill some animals. They have to develop coping mechanisms that sometimes lead to animal abuse because they are forced to look at these animals as objects. So it is more common than you think. Everyone always says, oh, vegans they only show the bad videos, the bad stuff. But think about how many videos have been released of animal abuse in factory farms. It's because it is common. So you could assume that in most cases, and even in the most ideal of worlds, which is not ideal for us, but animals who just get their throat slit without being kicked or mounted or knocked in the head or have their tails pulled, if the animal just gets their throat slit, why does that not count as abuse? Wouldn't you say that it is abusive to kill someone who doesn't want to die?
Would I say no, I would not.
Someone doesn't want to die.
Go ahead, David.
We didn't hear you real good, David.
I was just asking if you could draw that distinction. If you could make that distinction, because you jump straight from animals to, I think, humans. You made that jump from killing an animal.
Someone. We call animals or someone.
I don't think that it's always immoral to kill somebody just because they don't want to die. I think that there are things that you can do in this world that will earn you a death penalty.
Yes, but a 6-month-old piglet hasn't done anything to you to deserve being killed.
Right, but they're also not capable of giving me any kind of moral consideration. If they find me unconscious, they'll eat me.
All right, David. I see you was trying to get back in. Go ahead, David.
Pigs will eat people. Just so y'all know.
Well, if they find a dead corpse, if they find a dead corpse, I think any carnivore might eat you. But if you're alive, sitting next to the pig, they might come and nuzzle you. That's generally what happens.
Here, let's give David a chance to jump back in. You know, there's a time lag or so.
Yeah.
Okay. No worries. Thanks, Derek. So what I would want to say is that if it comes down to me having my throat slit or being mauled by a lion for food, I'd rather have my throat slit.
Mm-hmm.
And again, for me, I view certain animals as food products. They are our, as you'd say, prey. We are omnivores. We've been humans, or let's say anyone in the hominin line, and I'm doing hominin, not hominid, we've been omnivores for about 2.6 million years. So we do have definite prey that we would eat. If we were still living back in the savannah, we would be hunting certain types of animals anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see any problem in, pardon? So I don't see any problem in eating food, things that would be part of our natural diet.
Do you see
again, for me, that's not a moral consideration of the way things are.
Do you see a problem with rape or slavery?
There's a false equivalence.
I see many problems with that.
It's not a false equivalency because human beings have been raping and enslaving each other for many, many, many years. It's natural.
You're falsely equating humans to these animals, and I don't know what criteria you're using.
Saying that just because something is natural doesn't mean we should be doing it. Just because something is common or traditional or has always been done doesn't mean.
I agree. The naturality of it is irrelevant.
Okay, so David's making an irrelevant.
It's humans. No, what I'm saying is humans eat. We have a diet. I'm not making any moral considerations after that at all. We need to eat food, yes or no? We need to consume quality calories.
We
There's
do not
moral
need
consideration
to be healthy, so we don't need to do it. So it's needless. Even though we've done it for years and years and years, we don't need to do it.
Let me ask you this. If you happen upon a human being conducting something disgusting that I won't say on live right here, and you bludgeon them to death to stop them, have you done something immoral?
You're saying this human being is like harming me or harming someone else?
Yes, physically.
Yeah, I think it's okay to stop them with violence if necessary. I mean, if necessary, but that's such a fringe example. I don't think it applies to, again.
I mean, it happens every day though, right?
Yeah, it happens every day in fringe examples, but what happens more frequently is people go through the drive-through at McDonald's.
Or to the grocery store, and they are presented with a plethora of options that they can choose from.
Like if a bear was attacking you, Kaz, I would help you. I would try to save your life. I don't want you to die because you're getting attacked by a bear.
I would also help you as well.
Well, thank you. So, but we don't need to go into the woods. Like we don't need to go intentionally shoot just because a bear might kill you.
The point of my hypothetical is to illustrate that human beings are also capable of not having any moral consideration. Just because any animal, human included, that is not capable of showing moral consideration for other animals deserves no consideration. Now we know that bulls will maul you, that they will stick those horns all the way up where the sun don't shine anytime that they can. They charge.
You put them in an arena. Yeah, they're defending themselves.
Yeah.
Well, I have the article. There are wild cattle in California. Like
lions.
If we go vegan and we shut down all the farms, then we're going to have cattle roaming free, and there are going to be some horns up some asses.
Well,
we're not just going to free all the cows overnight. Unfortunately, the world's not going to go vegan that fast.
Yeah.
But what if you get your way? What if you guys are so persuasive in this debate that everybody in the world is just shared everywhere? We all go vegan because of what you guys say tonight. What we gonna do?
What we hope would happen is that gradually the demand would decrease, which would also decrease the supply. That's just realistically, that's what would happen. No one's going to go. The world's not going to.
Then, what do you envision happening?
Feeding cows.
That's why I said in my opening, I don't think it was sustainable. What you're asking for, because what are you asking for? Long term, what do you think will happen?
We would like
humans have grown to and humans have grown alongside cows, pigs, and a variety of other farmed animals. We have a more or less symbiotic relationship with them. I do think humans have made a lot of mistakes. We have made a great deal of mistakes. I think we can both admit that. But for better or worse, we're in a symbiotic relationship with them. What do you think will happen in the long term?
Symbiosis, however, means both parties
mutual benefit.
Yeah.
I don't know that a cow getting its throat slit would agree that it's symbiosis.
Yeah. We've also had a symbiotic relationship with cats and dogs for thousands of years, and we don't slaughter them by the billions and eat their corpses. Like, you can have a symbiotic relationship with an animal and still treat the animal with respect. Like, we have dogs that would never survive in the wild. Chihuahua, if you freed all the Chihuahuas, they would do horribly in the wild. But we don't breed them by the billions and needlessly kill them for food.
Yeah, and this is a point that you brought up, Kaz, our relationship to animals, which is irrelevant to their inherent right to live. Just because we have a relationship with cats and dogs, it doesn't mean that they have any more or less of a right to live than another animal. I mean, look at some Asian countries eat cats and dogs. There's an inconsistency across cultures of who we exploit. So when you look at the root of it all, we are just picking and choosing, and it doesn't really matter to some people that pigs are smarter than dogs. It doesn't really matter to some people that dolphins are cute or cuter than cats, because some people eat cats. I mean, it's all just random. So what it comes down to is every being's capacity to suffer.
You want to go, David?
Yeah, I do, because for us, at least for me, it would be that it's the relationships the different cultures. It's the relationship the different cultures have cultivated with those animals. As you said, in the Far East, where they do eat cats and dogs, for every reason that is their relationship with those animals. It's how we have grown up with them, and how we treat them and how we view them.
And what does that mean to the cat or the dog?
And I do think we do provide. Which cats and dogs in the Far East?
Yes, I'm saying cats and dogs. We, as the oppressor, we're deciding, oh, these beings, it's okay because we decided as the oppressor to subjugate them. We're not factoring in what the cat or the dog might want to do, which I would argue they want to keep living and not be killed.
Okay, so but why are you calling us the oppressor?
What?
Why? My question would be, why are you framing us? My question is, why are you framing us as the oppressor? You're ignoring a large part of how human evolution alongside these cats and dogs and animals took place.
Do you think that
the first dogs came to be the first dogs that came to live alongside us, there was a mutual benefit to the both of us. They would alert us to the predators that were surrounding us, and we would provide them with scraps.
And they helped us hunt.
So you're ignoring a large part of that.
They helped us find other ways.
Thank you, guys.
We're not acknowledging that we have relationships with animals and that we've domesticated dogs and cats to suit our needs. But I mean, that's not relevant to, like, well, I guess I'm not sure what the argument is.
Their moral value isn't dependent on how we view them.
You're calling us the person. I don't know that that's necessarily true.
The moral value of living
person.
We determine. See, that's the thing, is I feel like the root of the world's problems starts with us, our egotism, our need to dominate, to control, to do what we want. And why? I mean, what if you guys, I don't know if you've ever seen pigs in a slaughter truck. We have. Would you call yourself the victim, or would you call yourself an oppressor when you know that people are paying for that to happen? When you hear the screams from inside the slaughterhouse, would you call yourself the victim?
Plants can scream too. We just can't hear the sound.
Plants are not sentient to the best of our science.
You said that sentience was subjective experience, which plants definitely have.
You are a plant rights activist. Then what about the plants that the cows you eat?
From my perspective, we're all just picking and choosing, you guys especially, because this is all just life forms on a different spectrum. It ranges from bacterial all the way to us and beyond, who knows. But We're all just living things, and life just eats life. And you guys are deciding that there's a line between animal and plant. And then if we play the name the trait game, you won't be able to play for very long, because there are plants that have the same characteristics as animals.
If you sit on the sidewalk with a carrot and a piglet.
A carrot is not a plant. A carrot is just the root of the plant, I believe.
All right. If you stood on the sidewalk with
a head of
celery or a head of lettuce and a piglet, and you asked people which one they would like to chop, what do you think people would choose?
I would think that they're biased.
Why are they biased?
Because they're empathizing with things with faces.
I
You're
think
just
they're
looking at something that looks like you and saying, "Oh, well, then I can't hurt it because it looks like me."
They're empathizing with beings that have brains and nervous systems and a subjective experience of life.
I can empathize with a plant. Why am I wrong?
And when
you can, if you would like to empathize with a plant, that's not a problem. But that doesn't make the plant sentient. It doesn't give the plant a brain or a nervous system.
Why do you think that nervous systems are required for thinking and processing information?
To the best of our knowledge, yes.
I mean, they're not. We built computers. We've already proven that it's not required.
Computers
information,
are intelligent. Yes, they're
they
not.
can process information without any biological
intelligence and sentience are two different things.
Computers aren't sentient. They are intelligent.
Yet. Sure, not yet. We haven't figured it out.
That's what I'm saying. To the
they
best
will be.
of our scientific knowledge.
There's no distinction. There are plenty of
plants did not develop the biological adaptation of being able to run away from predators. I mean,
no, they didn't.
Like they can't move.
Their philosophy since the beginning of the time has been chill.
Right. So there's no reason to think they experience pain, because pain would not evolve in a being that can't move away from pain.
But we can demonstrate pain response.
You can demonstrate a response. You can't
pain response. Yeah.
Pain. No, not a pain response.
If a creature takes in data from its environment, processes it, and then has a reaction, that's sentience.
That's an intelligent reaction. That's not sentience. It isn't. It doesn't feel like something to be.
How do you know that? How could you ever possibly say that? Just because you definitely can't say that because you empathize with it.
According to the Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness, that's the best of our knowledge to date, is that plants are not sentient, but mammals and birds and octopuses and other species, they are.
And that is an opinion drawn from a biased position.
That's an opinion drawn by some of the world's top neurologists.
And they can be speciesist too.
They can be. I'm sure many of them aren't vegan. I mean,
most of them are speciesist
as well. But that doesn't, just because you think a plant can scream, it doesn't make the plant scream.
No, but we can show it. We can demonstrate it scientifically.
You can demonstrate a reaction, yes. But if you push the screen on your iPhone, it reacts. You know, your iPhone is not sentient, right?
Not yet.
So then plants aren't sentient yet?
No, plants have been evolving for billions of years. iPhones are pretty new.
But they're not sentient yet, according to your logic.
No, plants can do these things autonomously. They don't need a person to input.
Well, iPhones update automatically. They don't need a person to input that. They just
some human being up at Apple has to push the button to send the update out.
Yes, they have intelligent reactions to stimuli, just like plants have intelligent reactions to stimuli.
All right, let's get David back in, and then we're going to start reading some super chats. All right,
sure.
David.
Wow. Thing is, I kind of get where Kaz is coming from when it comes to the plants. It's at some point you're cutting off what you would consider suffering, because even if the plants aren't sentient, they are in some form responding to stimuli that says that they are being damaged.
Yes, plants are alive.
And yet that is... Pardon?
They calculate.
Plants are alive. We don't deny that. Plants are alive and intelligent, and they respond to stimuli.
They feel. They literally feel.
Bring it back around and say that don't forget that the animals you eat also eat plants. Yes. So if you really care about plants...
Yes, and we're saying that we're not saying that we care about plants. We're saying that on your end, when it comes to drawing that line, where do you draw that line, and why would you draw that line there? Our side says, as Kaz, I'll quote Kaz, life eats life. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing moral to be gained by that, and saying that it's not a moral discussion. Life eats life. It's how it is.
Or are we
it's
not
neither good nor bad?
Don't you consider yourself a little bit, maybe, you know, as humans, we have the ability to make moral decisions. I don't know that I worry about a lion making moral decisions. A lion's a lion. I don't pretend to understand a lion. They are an obligate carnivore, but we are capable of deciding what, when we walk into a grocery store, what we want to support and what we don't want to support.
Yeah,
It's
and
not
we
just
draw.
us. Go ahead.
I was saying, he asked where do you draw the line? Veganism draws the line at sentience. If a being is incapable of suffering, then you can't inflict suffering on that being if they're incapable of suffering. So a plant is incapable of experiencing joy and sadness and happiness. So, but a pig and a cow and a chicken clearly experience joy and happiness and sadness, and they seek to avoid pain. They run away from pain. They don't want to be harmed. They don't want to be killed. And human beings do it anyway. It's immoral. We wouldn't want that done to us.
All right. Here we got a question by from Howard. He says, why is it okay to cause an animal's death for your own survival? Why do your preferences for survival override the rights of an animal? And that's for Anna and Brian.
It is.
You don't need to kill an animal to survive. So I don't know. Do they mean like if you're being attacked by a bear?
Yeah, that's what he's asking. He's saying, if it's okay to cause animals death for your own survival, why do your preference for survival override the animal's right? But
Well,
after all, he is just trying to get a meal in, isn't he? When he's attacking me, why are you going to kill him to eat me? When he's just trying to eat.
I know that, but I value you as a fellow Homo sapien. So I don't.
Why value me more than him?
Of course.
You should value the bear.
Why would I
Why?
value a
Let
strange
me get
bear
eaten,
more
bro.
than a fellow-
Your mother over a stranger on the street.
I would rather be a meal for a bear than for you to be morally inconsistent. So,
Well,
Well, if
I don't
that's
know
the
if that's
case-
genuine.
the question was for Anna.
I think that to answer the question, I think that survival is built inside of us, and it's unreasonable to ask people, hey, if a bear starts attacking you, just let it kill you.
Yeah.
That's the more moral option. That's not reasonable. It's not practical. I don't think that's
because I have utility to your survival. I, as a fellow human, can strategize with you and help you survive other bear attacks. That's why I'm more valuable to you, just because I have utility to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bear has utility to the environment, but you, like, we kind of know you. We just had an hour-long discussion with you. We value
because I
you.
share a facial structure and bone structure that's similar to yours. I have an investment in your survival, and you have an investment in my survival, and we can work together to survive the bears and the comets and
Yeah,
the
but how
universal heat death.
How many people
Yeah.
get like attacked by bears versus how many people walk into a Ralph's and buy groceries? That's the thing. It's like we're talking about hypotheticals and fringe examples, and sure, we can hash those out, but really what it comes down to is the choices that people make every day.
Mhm.
All right, we have another question from Lily. She asks, "What kind of?" I'm assuming it's a woman. She asks, "What kind of electronics are you using when human suffrage is used to create those components?" And I believe that question is also directed at Anna and Brian.
Well, what about you? What are you writing on? what did you just type that question on?
I mean, if you're saying that there's human suffering involved in the manufacture of electronics, we would say yes, probably, but then there's also the suffering of the animals that you're killing for taste pleasure. So either way you slice it, anytime you remove animals from the equation, you're reducing deaths.
All right.
No, what they're talking about is consistency. Well, what they're talking about is moral inconsistency, because you've said that you want the best possible outcome to maximize well-being. Yet, so you're happy to maximize well-being for animals, but you're happy for humans to suffer. That's, I think, what they're trying to get at.
We're not happy that humans suffer, but eating animals is needless. Using electronics to communicate with the modern world is needed. So that has to factor in. Like eating a cheeseburger from Burger King is completely different.
I have a quick question.
That doesn't have to factor.
Just to toss it out there. So we've tried and we continue to attempt to improve the technique of lab-grown meats. What's your take on that, Anna and Brian?
I mean, for me personally, I think that if I were to walk into a slaughterhouse and tell the animals, listen, they're trying to grow meat out of a cell on, like, I need a cell, I need a biopsy from one of you, and then we can multiply meat for everyone who wants to eat meat. If I were to walk in a slaughterhouse and tell the animals, but listen, there are a lot of people out there who don't like that idea because it still involves animal flesh, they'd probably be devastated. They want out, you know. So I'm for incrementalism, trying to improve the situation. I personally wouldn't eat animal flesh, whether it's lab grown or whatever, because I don't like the idea of it.
But the world would certainly be a better place if everyone ate lab-grown meat. It would be far fewer animal deaths. Yes. So we support, like Anna said, incrementalism on the way to veganism.
Okay. Germania asks, if plants were sentient, it would be okay to eat them because we have to, whereas it's immoral to eat animals because we don't have to. Agree or disagree?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. If plants were sentient, it would be okay to eat them because we have to, whereas it's immoral to eat animals because we don't have to. Agree or disagree?
Yeah.
Yeah,
correct.
I agree. Yep.
All right. It seems like most of these questions that are resident vegans. So let's try to. We'll just go down and see what they say. We do have a super chat from D Darko that says meat is murder, tasty, tasty murder.
Excuse.
All right, we're just gonna.
No, I'm gonna go.
Series on for 1 second.
Let the girls in.
Okay, I've got a question. A follow-up question for Brian. You both agreed that if plants were sentient, it would be okay. It would be morally justifiable to eat the plants if they were sentient. You said yes. Am I correct in saying that?
Well,
We're
the person asks if plants were sentient. Ultimately, we have to eat something, right? So they're saying, like, even if plants were sentient, we still have to eat them. But they're saying that it would still be immoral to eat animals because we don't have to. So that's what they're saying. They're saying we have to eat something to get our calories, to get our nutrients. So at the base of it, it will have to be plants ultimately.
If I may, I just want to respond to that a little bit, just because I did mention 8 different nutrients that they're not easily available from plant sources, that we have to engineer bacteria to produce these things. We have to play with their genetics and who knows what else we're doing with it. I mean, I'm not anti-GMO personally, but I can understand people that are. And if you are, it doesn't make any sense for you to put yourself at risk of being deficient of these nutrients just because your life is important too.
Yeah, I mean, that assumes that vegans are statistically deficient in those nutrients. But given that every single amino acid is available in every single whole plant food, the only food that I know of that doesn't contain all amino acids is gelatin. So, I mean, whole plant foods have the nutrients that we need. And I don't see the hospitals filled with vegans.
But presence does not equal sufficiency.
Well, then why aren't all the vegans like going to hospital for vitamin A deficiency or vitamin D3
supplementation because of GMOs?
Okay, so then we don't have to eat animals to get, like, vegans are not.
You don't have to because you don't care about GMOs. But if anybody out there does, they might have to.
Oh, we care about GMOs.
I mean, we care about GMOs,
we do our best to avoid non-organic stuff, but
there are plant-based alternatives, plant-based supplements, plant-based foods, whole plant foods. There's a number of ways to get your vitamins and minerals every day.
You know, people have this thing against supplementation, but supplementation was around even before veganism was a thing. Yep. I mean, the people were deficient in all sorts of things before vegans happened.
I think that a moral mandate should be something that is possible for anyone who hears it.
For anyone, well, hence why veganism asks people to abstain from animal exploitation as far as what's possible and practical. If you live in Antarctica, for example, you're going to have a very different selection of foods available to you than if you live in Ohio. So we need to do what's possible and practical. And the truth is that it's the Western countries like the United States and and Canada and Australia and England. These are the countries that are consuming animal products and killing animals by the billion. It's not these fringe examples. It's modern Western society that is causing the most suffering. And so we're asking those people that have the means, they have the ability to choose plant foods. We're asking them to choose plant foods.
All right, let's try to get through these super chats. So Michael out of California asks, for the omnivores, what is true of animals that, if true of humans, would justify needlessly killing them for food?
Would justify
Killing
You want to
humans
go first,
for food.
David?
Can you repeat that? I'm not entirely certain I understood that.
Right. It's worded a little. Well, he says, what is true of animals that, if true of humans, would justify needlessly killing them for food? So, if essentially what he's asking is, if I got it right, is whatever justification we have for killing animals, what makes humans different? Why aren't we eating humans for food?
Yeah.
More human beings are capable of being co-opted for my scheme for survival.
So are animals.
So, well, apart from that, there are people in I think it's the Southeast Asia, I think it's Papua New Guinea, where they do eat other human beings, where they do engage in ritualistic cannibalism, and they have the human version of mad cow disease. So that would be one answer why we don't see humans eating other humans. I've looked online and I've seen that other primates. Pardon?
There's prions and brain tissue is a very big problem for cannibalism. Go ahead.
It is. So I've also seen that there are other primates that will kill each other, but they won't eat each other. So I would say that it has to do something with our species in the way we interact with other people.
The trait is being capable of providing me with moral consideration. Any human being that is not capable of giving me moral consideration is killable, because they're probably a murderer or a rapist or both.
Hold on, a severely mentally disabled person is...
No, that's a false equivalence. Mentally disabled people are not morally disabled. Morally disabled people are a special subset of disabled people that have certain proclivities that cause them to commit certain kinds of crime that make them more expendable to us.
You know, you have people with all kinds of brain developmental disorders, or in some cases, well, let's put it this way. Some people are not able to make moral decisions. Like there are even children, can lash out.
They can be pretty immoral sometimes.
And we still take away a lot of the considerations. I mean, you can't kidnap any human being that you want, but you can kidnap a person like that and throw them in jail. They're kidnapped, technically.
But if a mentally disabled person is incapable of understanding or comprehending morality, then they would fall in your category of okay to be killed, right? Yes,
absolutely.
Oh, okay. If that's your moral system, I guess we'll leave that as the
let's not throw you.
It's your moral system too. I'm just saying it's our moral system, not yours. You probably are against the death penalty, right? I don't know.
All right. We'll leave Kaz with the last word because the question was directed towards the omnivores. So let's move on to the next. 20 Faces asks, if vegans were consistent, they would stop predatory animals from killing their prey. The way we defend human victims of predatory animals. Why don't they do this?
Wild animal suffering. That's one we get a few, not a lot, but we get that a few times.
They're saying we should go into the woods and like defend the deer from bears
because again, veganism is not about being perfect. It's about doing the best we can insofar as is possible and practicable. Okay, so we can't, and by the way, we don't discriminate between carnivore animals and herbivore animals. They are all here. I don't pretend to understand why some animals eat other animals and why some animals don't. That's not up to me to decide. I have my own moral framework. They have theirs. But realistically, I'm not, we're not going to go out into the plains of the woodlands and stop animals from hunting down other animals. It comes down to what is the most accessible to most people on the planet. Grocery stores, right? It's just being realistic.
All right. Do y'all want to comment on that? The omnivores, or should we move on to the next one?
No, go ahead.
We can move on.
We'll move on to the next one. All right. So Lily came back and asked, well, really just made another statement. She was the one that asked about the human suffrage that's used for creating computer components. She says that computers and phones are not needed for survival. So here you are. That's what she says.
Word.
They're not. Yes. To be honest, if you want to avoid the maximum amount of suffering, you should kill yourself. I mean, that would be how to avoid the most suffering.
That's the problem with well-being as a moral objective.
What's that?
That's the problem with well-being as a moral objective. The anti-suffering well-being objective of morality is just untenable. It doesn't work in the long term. Why doesn't it work? Because, like you just said, the maximum well-being is to kill yourself. Right. The least amount of suffering is also to kill yourself too. It's a suicidal morality.
We are acknowledging we all have a desire to live. We're just trying to grant that right to everyone we can. You know, we're aware of the fact that some animals will die. Heck, when I walk out the front door to go somewhere in the morning, I will step on ants. I will probably someday, hopefully never, hit an animal with my car. I mean, things like that happen. But we're talking about the choices we can make, the things we have control over, as far as we know, as far as we have the knowledge to do so, you know, like.
Is it reasonable to ask people in 2020 in Ohio or California or Georgia or Israel to not use the internet? Is that reasonable? Or is it reasonable to ask people to just commit suicide to reduce suffering? I don't think that's reasonable. But it is reasonable to ask them to eat some potatoes or eat some beans or eat a Beyond Burger, order the Beyond Burger.
And I hate beans with all of my heart and soul. I despise them. I will never, ever eat a bean in my life. No, never.
I'm from Costa Rica, so I live on beans.
I feel sorry for your tongue.
It's probably like a cilantro thing for you then.
It tastes, it looks like diarrhea. It looks like shit. No, never going to eat beans in my life. No.
Then don't eat beans.
Just stick to potatoes. Stephen Steen says, James, you all the world soy. We are fresh out. All right.
Yeah, so I've just might associate.
What did you say?
No, Stephen Steen, he said, James, use all the world soy. We are fresh out of soy. All right. Spartan Theology, super chat. He says, question for vegans. You made very strong claims about slaughterhouse workers. Do you have sources for all that?
Yeah, actually, we used to attend vigils outside of we used to organize vigils with an organization in the LA area at a chicken slaughterhouse, pig slaughterhouse, and a cow slaughterhouse. And we have actually firsthand experience speaking to slaughterhouse workers. And there's also data that has been gathered by foodispower.org that supports all the claims from earlier. I mean, the one slaughterhouse worker we've spoken to two precisely. And one of them is a former convict. So getting work is not easy. And that is one of the only places he could find work. And he quit after, he says most people quit after 3 months because it is.
I mean, you're being asked to murder animals for a 12-hour shift 6 days a week.
Yeah, and they don't.
No one wants that job.
It sounds like a great opportunity to allow sociopaths to have an outlet for their, whatever you'd call it, while also benefiting the rest of the world and not hurting any humans.
Well, I think sociopaths we've watched a lot of these documentaries.
You start a sociopath.
I do think that sociopaths seek
agency.
What drives a lot of sociopaths is the attention and the mystery behind it. So if they're, I don't know that necessarily working at a slaughterhouse adds to that thrill.
No, I would also say we should ask the pigs what they think about that idea.
What are they going to say?
They're the victims.
What will they say exactly?
All right, Lily strikes again. She says, so you're saying suicide is easier than not using phones?
No.
Suicide would cause less.
We're not advocating. Please do not confuse that. We're saying that if if one was really interested in causing the least suffering possible, then not existing would cause the least suffering possible. But we're not advocating for that. We're simply saying that if that's truly your concern, because I mean, you're advocating, or you're seemingly advocating for something that you yourself are not practicing, because you've purchased a computer, you probably own a phone. I don't know what you're typing on, but you know, also think about how many computers and how many phones do people purchase in a lifetime versus how many animals or animal flesh they purchase in a lifetime.
All right, we have a question for the non-vegans from
So
Germania. If you witness someone slaughtering a dog,
can
would you be outraged?
David's trying to say something. Sorry, I know we haven't heard from you a lot.
Can you clarify why committing suicide would be the least amount of suffering?
No. Can you clarify?
I'll put it this way: we all have people that we bring immense joy. Yeah, please clarify, because I am baffled by that.
Suicide may be the wrong. It's like non-existing.
No, it's not. No, I would push back on that. Yes, if a person committed suicide, then their friends and family members would be sad and they would experience a certain amount of negative well-being. But the thousands of animals that person would have eaten in their lifetime would not be killed and eaten by them. So it is the most assured way to cause the least amount of suffering is to simply not exist.
But we're not saying.
But that's not reasonable. That's not practical. We're not advocating for suicide.
This is about everyday choices, easy to make choices. You know, obviously, that's a hypothetical.
All right, and David, if you want to respond to Germania's question, if you witness, and this is for you, Kaz, as well, if you witness someone slaughtering a dog, would you be outraged?
Go ahead, David.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I'm talking about for shits and giggles or for food. Can I clarify that one?
For a utilitarian purpose.
Well, we'll see if they write a clarifying response in the super chats. They didn't specify whether it's for food or if it's just for.
Well, I would say that
I would be more outraged.
I was going to say, if the person's doing it. Yeah, if the person's doing it for fun and because he wants to torture the dog, I would say, yeah, that's terrible. I'd be outraged at that. However, if he's doing it because he wants to eat some food, okay.
You've seen the Yulin footage, right? Have you? Because the idea behind the dog meat festival is that the more tortured the meat, the better it tastes. And there are some pretty. I would posit that anyone you sit in front of a screen and show that footage to is going to be horrified. I mean, I've seen they do things to dogs and cats that I don't see them do, that I haven't seen on pigs and cows, like horrific.
So I would be more
would be wrong
outraged. Go ahead, finish it.
Yes, I was saying that in 2003, in preparation for the Rugby World Cup, they took the South African rugby team to a place called Kamstalterap, and one of the exercises that they put them through was they chucked a chicken in. I think they were sitting in a well. They chucked a chicken in there, and between, I think they were about 23 guys in there, and it was up to one of them to kill the chicken. And because this person was so shocked and horrified by having to do this, that chicken suffered a lot, and they had to eat the chicken as well. And they describe that meat as being tough and chewing just because of the stress the animal goes through. If you look at a steak, the tenderest part of the steak is where there's the least amount of work that's done on it.
Yeah,
so torturing animals just for meat is not true. They have been lied to.
But that, I mean, that is what that is what they believe, and to them it tastes good. They might have different taste preferences than people in Western culture. Just like, you know, people in the U.S. might not like to eat, I don't know, live mice, which I've seen people eat in other parts of the world.
The ideal would be, let's not kill a chicken at all. Let's eat plant-based and play some rugby.
Kaz, do you want to respond to?
So I want to answer that question. I would be more outraged to watch somebody stomp down a flower for no reason than to slaughter a dog for meat. If you're talking about slaughtering the dog for fun or anything other than eating it, then yeah, I'm outraged as hell. But if you're just talking about eating the dog like any other animal, I don't care.
If I want to eat
Torturing any creature is wrong, even if it's a plant.
So if I want to eat the flower, that's okay.
Yeah, if you want to eat the flower, I don't care.
Okay.
But stomping on a flower for fun is more morally abhorrent than killing a dog to eat the dog in your view.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I guess that's another reductio on your point. Like killing a non-sentient being is more morally abhorrent than killing a sentient being.
You're drawing that line. First of all, I don't agree with your framing of the sentience, but even if I did, it's still arbitrary, and it's still life forms that I value. I value all life forms for their utility.
We're not experts on plants, on plant feelings, so we draw on science. We draw on what's available to us.
We defer to the professionals. I mean, of course, yeah, we don't go around just cutting down trees willy-nilly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you follow the science, if you look at the most recent cutting-edge stuff, then you'll see that plants are way more sentient than you give them credit for.
They're not sentient at all. They're intelligent.
Granted. They are able to communicate.
Okay, so we really need to talk about the definitions, but I guess that's a whole other debate.
Yeah.
Just go ahead.
Let's give the non-vegans the last word on that question. Do y'all have anything else to say in response to that question?
I'm good.
No? All right. Sunflower directs this question at Brian. Whether or not one eats McDonald's is irrelevant. That is a textbook ad hominem. Would you call an alcoholic who says alcohol is harmful a hypocrite?
Well, so you're admitting that McDonald's is harmful?
Yeah, I did that earlier.
Yes. But we're talking about following a moral framework or advocating for a moral framework that you're not following. So factually speaking, does alcohol do harm to the human body? Yes. If a person chooses to do harm to their own body via alcohol, that's not a moral issue. We're talking about morality. So it's not a very good analogy. Like, we can agree, factually speaking, that alcohol does damage to the human body, but your body is your body. If you want to do damage via alcohol to your body, it's yours. But we're talking, when you eat at McDonald's, you're talking about someone else's body and most likely many other beings' bodies.
Okay. We have another super chat from Germania who asks, if aliens ask you why they shouldn't eat you or other humans, what argument would you give to convince them not to? Could your answer apply to cows and pigs too? I'm assuming this is directed at the non-vegans.
I could say, please don't eat me. Let's hear that from the cow.
What if they don't speak your language?
If they're advanced aliens, they don't speak my language, then they're not that advanced and they probably don't exist. It's
from a different
too ridiculous.
Their own evolution. I mean,
there's no way that aliens exist and they can get here and can't understand us.
Hold on. You're saying if aliens get here, they must be able to speak English?
They will find, if they can figure out how to traverse the galaxy. I mean, I don't know if you know how big space is, but that's a huge feat. Understanding English is probably not going to be that difficult for them.
Yes.
Well, what they would probably have is would translate the sound waves into something they could understand. I think that.
I mean, we do have dictionaries online that can download.
Expressions or screaming or yelling, but still, they might just think they're better than us and deserve better or deserve to, to get their way. Who knows?
They could be bigger and stronger than us.
We could do whatever. We could try our best to convince them, and they might still decide to eat us.
And that's the circle of life.
Well,
no.
Well,
it's not.
Until we've met an alien.
All right. So that seems to be the last of the super chats. We have some closing remarks from either side. Anna and Brian started it all, so we'll let them end. So Brian and Kaz, up to you. Some closing remarks.
Closing remarks.
Who first?
Well,
I just want to say that
I
will be on my Discord, Factitionalist78885. If you guys want to talk to me or argue about this some more after this is over with, I don't know if it's in the description or not, but that's where I'll be.
It should be in the description. David?
Yeah, might close off by just in regards to the alien question, I would say that just like what happened with cows and chickens and pigs and sheep, if the aliens decided to farm us for our meat, I'm sure there would be humans that would comply and they would breed for compliance. I don't think I'd be one of the compliant ones. That's as much as I can say. But if they decided to do that and we're part of the food chain, well, c'est la vie.
Who in the super chat would comply to die for the aliens? I don't know.
I mean, either way, if we don't all learn to work together, we're all going to go extinct anyways. So, I mean, it's all going to be a moot point eventually. We need to learn how. So, I mean, we need to learn certain lessons from the vegans no matter what, just because we definitely need to be efficient with our food processing and development, et cetera, et cetera. We need to start being more conscious about the environment and worry about climate change and whatnot, because if this whole world becomes ice age one day or whatever happens, there's going to be a lot less plants for us to eat anyways.
Okay, we just got another super chat in from Mark, and he asks, what do we do with all the animals who reproduce with abandon after we stop eating and hunting them? Do we give them jobs? Do we cull them genetically?
We addressed this in the debate. Realistically speaking, the world will not go vegan overnight, unfortunately. It's probably going to go the way of the horse and carriage industry or the typewriter industry. As one technology takes over, the other technology slowly weans itself out of existence. So the more people that buy plant-based foods and the fewer people that buy animal-based foods, the fewer animals that will be bred into existence.
But what happens when they start breeding themselves? When we let the last couple cows go and then they go off and start their own new lineage of super cows with no predators to eat them, and they start eating our crops and they start eating our vegan food and trampling them, they tear down our fences and whatnot. Are we going to kill them? What are we going to do to them?
Super cows.
That's assuming that that's what we're going to do with the cows. I think our focus is getting people to stop needlessly breeding and exploiting and mutilating and torturing and killing cows at the age of 1 year old, just for 15 minutes of pleasure. And then when it's a realistic idea, okay, hey, we have a few cows left, what do we do with them? Then we can address that. But the world's not going to go vegan overnight. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate.
All right.
It's so much more than 15 minutes.
Did y'all want to have a closing remark, Anna and Brian?
Closing remarks. I think we just say, yeah, you can check out our channel on YouTube if you want to see more of our content. If you like what we have to say, we're Those Annoying Vegans on YouTube. And
yeah, if you have any questions, if you we're of the belief that we tackle everything one conversation at a time, and that's why we love. And that's why we love these debates, because they're discussions. We don't have these. These used to be more common back in the day, right? And I think addressing questions or concerns, or don't be afraid of being judged or anything like that. We're not here to judge you. Yeah, we have an Instagram. Sometimes we post inflammatory memes. It might upset some people, but that's a good sign. That means it's getting you thinking.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions at all, just let us know.
Like Kaz, we're interested in the facts as well. And we would just ask you, like, if you are currently choosing to eat animal products, ask yourself why. Why are you?
I like them.
Yes. And then ask yourself, is that a good enough reason to contribute to needless suffering? And if you disagree with what you're paying for, then stop paying for it.
Yeah. I mean, and if it's so natural, if it's so common, if it's something we were always meant to do, then you should be able to sit through Earthlings or Dominion and not shed a tear.
Oh, I can. I totally can. I've been in Iraq, dude. I was a medic. I can see blood. It's no big deal.
Well, actually, one of the security guards we met at one of the slaughterhouses we worked at was also ex-military, and he found it pretty a little bit easier to see the things that most people would not be able to witness.
Yeah.
All right, with that, we're going to wrap this up. This was an epic debate. I enjoyed hearing you guys converse. for the most part, well, overall, it's very respectful. Everybody gave each other a chance to speak. We had a little technical difficulties with David's feed, but it was awesome. We definitely appreciate having him here and everyone else. Thank you. I'll salute you, David, Kaz, Anna, Brian. Awesome.
Thank
Y'all
you.
guys have a
Thank
good
you.
night, all right?
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you so
It was
much,
really
guys.
nice
Thank you guys for
talking.
coming. It was a good discussion.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Have a
All
good
right.
night or day.
Praise my producers. Should be rolling the credits.
They might still hear us. We have been hot mic'd before.
Okay. I don't know if we ended yet, but
I mean,
Praise, are you there?
do we leave now? Do we X out?
yeah. Let's just try Xing out.
All right.
Okay.
Bye,
See
guys.
y'all later.
All right.
Hey, David, you want to meet me on Discord and have a chat afterwards, or you
Yeah.
busy? You gotta go to bed.
Yeah, I'll be. I don't know if I left, but yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, I'm gonna be out of here.